In this video, we will be tasting and talking about batch 128 of the Eco-Cha Tea Club, an award-winning Wenshan Baozhong Tea from Taiwan. Batch 128 of the Eco-Cha Tea Club is an award-winning Wenshan Baozhong Tea from Taiwan, spring 2026 harvest, from our ongoing source of Wenshan Baozhong from Pinglin, Taipei, Taiwan. And as usual, we waited for our source to tell us when he had all of his batches of tea, or for the most part, all of his tea, destemmed and put in his ovens for a final dry roast to deplete any residual moisture. And we went up and visited him, and he brewed up, I believe, 6 days of harvest for us, one of which was this one. And after we tasted it and pointed out this one and another batch, he said that he chose this one to enter into the Pinglin Farmers Association spring tea competition. So we took what was left over after he entered it into competition, waited a couple weeks for the results to come out, and indeed this ranked as Youliang, which is in the top, I would say 55% of all entries. There was 1,825 entries, so this was in the top 1,000 entries, roughly speaking. It's not a high-ranking award, but it is better than half of the entries overall as they were determined by the competition, which is always a mixture of quality and gamble. There are some teas that are rejected that are quite good because they're determined to be slightly outside the parameters of the quality standard that is set in a given year. It does vary from year to year. Our source likes to oxidize his Wenshan Baozhong a little more than the quality standard for any of the competitions. I think there's 4 competitions in the Baozhong producing region. This is the biggest of them all, if I'm correct. And so, yeah, it's just, we always find a batch that we like that he has already decided not to enter into competition because it's a little too oxidized. But what that means for us is that it has a fuller flavor profile, has little or no green grassy flavor, sweeter, more rounded, well-rounded in its overall composition. This one was quite fragrant. It was an amazing floral, still coming off the cooled down pot here, that we were getting floral aroma coming off the leaves as they were brewing. It's just a rich, deep green, but also very perfumey, flowery notes coming out of the aromatic profile. I did 10.4 grams of tea leaves in this 118 milliliter teapot, starting at 45 seconds. I didn't heat up the pot or moisten the leaves at all. They are strip curl leaves, so we want to capture everything they have to offer as soon as they are moistened. So 45 seconds for the first infusion, down to 35 for the second, back up to 45 for the third, 55, and then 65 seconds for the 5th brew. And I'm going to get right into it here. I noticed a slight variation of color. I was wondering if I didn't brew it long enough on the first brew. It is lighter on the first brew and gradually gets darker as we go along, pretty much. I think the 5th brew is the densest in coloration. What they're going for, they call it a green gold hue, is the standard that they're looking for. That's one thing. Like, it could just be one of the reasons that it has points taken off in terms of its overall assessment is the coloration perhaps of the dried leaves or the brewed leaves or the brewed tea. Now, the brewed tea, when it comes to color, we're not very fussed if it's not the right and not green enough. What we're looking for is a bright kind of luminescent transparency in the brew, which I feel this has, and it's beautiful. And it is golden with a slight green hue. So I think it fits the Baozhong profile. I mentioned all that because this first brew is not at all weak. Herbal, almost a cooling aspect in there. Deep green character combined with this floral, perfumey, sweet, but very mildly sweet, subtly sweet. I'm always kind of stumped with Wenshan Baozhong, and even sometimes with Biluochun green tea, with this deep green character factor. I just don't know what it actually tastes like. Like it's not spicy enough for a herb, like a fresh herb. It's not that intense. It's softer and kind of just comforting and refreshing at the same time. So the unique aspect of Wenshan Baozhong in terms of how it is made is that, well, there are two things. I'll start from the beginning. In our area, central Taiwan, oolong tea, partially oxidized tea, the first step inevitably is solar withering. The leaves are spread out and exposed to sunlight. The infrared rays permeate the leaves and begin kind of kickstart the withering process, the very beginning of depleting the leaves of their moisture. Up in the north, because it rains a lot and they want to be able to make their tea consistently and just not have it be totally messed up by the weather, they've invented something called hot wind withering, where they put the leaves in troughs, quite thick, with hot wind blowing in. They have, heaters and fans underneath these troughs the leaves are on a grate, a kind of wire grate, 1 centimeter square, so they don't fall through. And they're shuffled during that time, and they are kick-started in terms of their withering process. It has been proven to be consistent, and we can't really recognize, we don't have a comparison. It's not an A/B testing kind of thing, but it seems to work well, is my point. So that's kind of unique for Baozhong in general in terms of a partially oxidized tea being withered with hot wind rather than solar power. The more distinctive factor with Wenshan Baozhong is that the leaves are not rolled into a semi-spherical shape. They're not tightly rolled. And that means they're not compressed, and they maintain their structure, their cellular structure more, and their fibrous structure. And maintaining the structure means maintaining a fresh quality. Basically, the compounds within the leaves aren't squished together. They're not, they kind of maintain their separate identity within the overall composition of the leaf more. So we get a more fresh quality overall, closer to something that would be raw, or not really raw, but dried without a lot of manipulation. Even the tumbling, I actually just attended a seminar this morning a presentation was given by the director of the Tea Research and Extension Station. They call it something different now, I'm old school, up in the New Taipei city area. And that's what he pointed out. He said they do the tumbling, not tumble heating, the tumbling, it's called da lang, in these big bamboo cylinders. The leaves are put in large quantity and slowly turned, and in effect they tumble, and the leaves are stimulated in their circulation to bring that moisture out in one last big effort. Prior to that, they're just shuffled and re-spread out on trays intermittently for many hours. So it's a longer indoor withering process and a gentler shuffling and tumbling process with Wenshan Baozhong. Finally, in the tumble heating, the cease oxidation, the fixing stage, shaqing, they don't dry the leaves as much as high mountain tea. They keep a good amount of moisture within the leaves, and that also maintains a fresh quality. And then afterwards, of course, they're just rolled gently in order to get this kind of curled shape, and then dried, and then they get destemmed as these leaves. Almost all Wenshan Baozhong in the north is machine harvested by hedge clippers, and then they sort and destem they remove the stems from the leaves. So dry leaves are basically all leaf, no stem, very uniform in their color and size. That all is very conducive to making a composition of tea that is more integrated. Okay, fifth brew. Professor Su said something interesting today in the presentation that I hadn't heard before. He said that typically, this is, in general, the leaves are harvested slightly more when they're slightly more mature, when they've opened, as they say in Chinese. The leaves, when they're growing, are in a V shape, and then when they're almost at the end of their vegetation stage, they open up and go flat. And he says, ideally, when making Baozhong, you want that. You want them to reach a fibrous stage, because whatever happens in terms of the constituents of the leaves, it will produce a more aromatic tea. That's interesting for me, anyway. And as opposed to high mountain tea, like everybody's really worried about not picking their leaves, getting a chance to pick their leaves before they open. After they open, they think it's over the time that they should have been picked. That's the general consensus. So he said, as a result of that, Wenshan Baozhong does not have the endurance that high mountain tea typically does. There's also the elevation factor and the climate that they grow in, which wasn't mentioned in that context. So I'm thinking of all those things in terms of how these five brews taste. Definitely holding through the third. Fourth, I would say definitely fairly consistent through the fourth. I did notice, yeah, it's a little bit flatter, but it's not even close to flat. There's a lot of flavor in here. It's just a very lively, herbaceous, floral composition that is amazing to me. I'm always impressed by Wenshan Baozhong. The last thing I want to say about it is that it's underrated and under-acknowledged. I'm getting goosebumps. In the world of tea, like, people just don't know about this tea enough, and the people that do are like, what's up with everybody else? He went into the historical background quite a bit today, and it basically was Taiwan's representative tea. So I was under the impression that the Japanese colonization kind of squashed the tea culture. They wanted to make it a monoculture and produce black tea for Europe and for Japan. That's the general development that happened. But in the north, Wenshan Baozhong was still going strong through the whole Japanese occupation right up until World War II. And then after World War II, the international demand dropped off for a number of complex reasons in Asia in terms of the trade and everything. And it's maintained its own in Taiwan, but it was the internationally renowned tea from Taiwan from the days of John Dodd in the late 1800s all the way through up until mid-20th century. So that's my little soapbox session in terms of really wanting people to get to know this historical and once upon a time very well known and respected type of tea. That's why we represent it. And that's why we decide to use a tea that our source enters into competition to represent the standard of quality that the overall industry is trying to maintain and promote both to the farmers and get the farmers to make a tea that is consistent in its quality standards. If you guys have any specific adjectives, anything if it reminds you of any particular food item or anything else in the world, please put that in our comments on our blog posts or on our tasting video, and share what you experience with this award-winning Wenshan Baozhong Tea from Pinglin, Taiwan, spring 2026. Thanks for being with us.